This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Now Taxes is 100% free when you file in the TurboTax app if you didn't file with us last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just do your own taxes in the app by 2/18.
What if I have lots of forms?
All good, all 100% free.
What if I had 3 jobs?
Still 100% free.
What if I once saw Bigfoot?
That has nothing to do with taxes, so still 100% free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now this is Taxes. See if you qualify in the TurboTax app. Excludes TurboTax Live, must start and file in app by 2/18.
You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. Obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors, but they take time and energy, pulling you away from building and shipping. That's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups get audit ready and build a strong security foundation, quickly and painlessly. Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. The platform connects you with trusted experts to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. So whether you're closing your first deal or gearing up for growth, Vanta makes compliance easy. Join over 8,000 companies, including Y Combinator and Techstar startups who trust Vanta. For a limited time, get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/simplify. That's VANTA.com/simplify for $1,000 off.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
He manages to get it wide to Jacob Minter. Good job with the shot, and the Slough Jets have taken the lead on the power play. With the shot cross goal. No need to save from Lorde, and Campbell finds himself in, and it's 3-1 to the Chelsea Chieftains.
Hello and welcome to Zero Pucks Given, the UK Ice Hockey Podcast. This is a special little bonus episode that we're going to sneak out in this week. It's going to be episode 146. And we've got someone returning to the podcast for the first time. We've had a couple of guests that have come back once or twice. But this one we've been speaking about since the first time he come on, getting him back on, and we've finally done it. Cheems, how you doing, fella? You all right?
Hey, mate. Yeah, I'm all good. Thanks for having me back on. I heard, I think it was JJ was talking about the time when I did that session in Streatham, and I heard it, and so I was like, all right, it must have been a pretty good session, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely something I wanted to talk to you about, because I looked at it actually from Paint's point of view as being the player coach.
Yeah.
And I know what Paints is like, and having to let that control go. But it was so happy that you were there and giving them something a little different. And as JJ said, it really got their brains ticking, didn't it?
Yeah, it was really, for me, very surreal to some extent, because I played with pretty much every single player on the team, and they're all my ex-teammates. Like JJ and Paints I grew up with. George Norcliffe was like my best man. So it was like very strange, like Danny Inglesby, Betty, Jordan Gregory. So Paints was like, he said, don't do anything crazy because we will fuck up. So like, don't do any of that edge work shit. But no, it was good. It was like, I think when I forget who they were playing. I think it was Chelmsford they were playing on the weekend, and Paints did like a pre-game meeting, and a lot of it was like on the forecheck. So some of the stuff we did was just focusing on details that make you better at forechecking, angles and stick detail. So I try to relate it more to what they needed to focus on going into that weekend. So that's kind of how I looked at it. But it was, very. Payne said that JJ's never skated so hard in his life in practice. So I guess that was all right.
I mean, as a coach now, obviously yourself more than a player. Do you play any sort of beer or rec at all, or do you just coach?
So I have a blood clot in my left leg. So I only have like 50 to 60% of my left leg. It dies after like 50 seconds to 6 minute of like anything intense.
Oh,
So
wow.
I run like more than 0.5 mile. So I still play, like I'll jump in on 3-on-3 when I'm coaching. In New Jersey, we have like a staff skate, which is like on game days where we like, not to name drop, but like, Marty Brodeur, Travis Ajak, Andy Green, like all like, and guys who work for the Devils will play in that game. So I've done that from time to time, but like, yeah, I'll play 3-on-3, but I haven't put my equipment on, like, I want to say 4 years. I haven't worn equipment.
Wow.
So it's still sitting there, still the same stuff I wore when I played back in the day and stuff. But
Does it
yeah,
still smell the same?
no, I got it's definitely fresher for sure. Like I definitely make sure I sprayed it with some stuff before I packed it away. But yeah, no, it's yeah, I miss playing, but every day I'm playing. I'm always doing like 1-on-1s, 2-on-1s, 3-on-3s, something like that, like messing around. So yeah, it's that's the only beer league I play, which is also I don't wear any equipment when I do that. I just go out there with a tracksuit and a helmet. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah. Well, the point I was going to get to there with you just now coaching players that you used to play with, would
Yeah.
be, can you kind of feel that you feel slightly under pressure to do a good job because you played with these guys, and they feel slightly under pressure to perform better because they know your caliber as a coach?
I think it was part and parcel. Like it's hard because being away from England for so long, you lose touch with people. So it's good to see everyone, but there's only like Norcliffe is I see and I speak to whenever I'm home, and like we've been really good friends. But everyone else like kind of talks to them now and again, but not so much. But no, I think it's like who was it? It was like Harvey Stead, Vanya, and I forget who else was over in New York. And we were out, and they were like, "How Cheema? How the fuck are you coaching like the level you're coaching and the players you're working with? You're like an average player." And I was like, "I don't know, mate. Like, fuck, I don't know." So I think coaching for me, I was definitely always going to be a better coach than I was player. But now when I say that, if I was to play the game now, it's like, fuck, I know so much and I know how to make the game more efficient, and I'm actually probably in better shape now than I was when I played. So it's almost like I wish I could roll back the time, but that's kind of my, my wish as a coach more so is to instill those things into the players, like the things that I didn't know as a kid. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think coming to a point now where I can work with players and give them those little tidbits so they don't look back and go, oh, fuck, I wish I knew this. I wish the game was easier, like, because I didn't know anything else. And I think that's the biggest thing for me when I'm coaching, just making sure those players feel like they're fully equipped and they have as much information as possible to make the game easier for themselves.
That really resonates with something that Ella Howard said. She was on the pod this week, the Team GB goalkeeper, and she said that through where she's played, in Europe and now in the States and then playing internationally, that what she's found and the best advice she could give to a young player, especially a goalkeeper, would be to pack your toolkit and then find out what works best for you.
Yeah, I think so. Like, if you were to use an analogy from a skill development standpoint, it's like you go in a trade school. You don't build a house on day one, right? And if you're going to go build a house, it's like, okay, what tool am I going to use in which situation? So, yeah, I think for sure, like, you have to have a lot of skills and tools, and obviously the off-ice component, but more importantly, the mental and the confidence piece, which I never really thought about as a player. Like, in England, especially when I grew up, like if you're young, you just sit on the bench. It wasn't. But now you have superstars like Celebrini and Bedard, who just because they're young, they can still be a superstar. So I think for me, it's like that big confidence piece and trying to ride that wave and also understand the kind of dynamics that go with that. And I think that's the most important thing that I work with on the players. It's like, a lot of players I get to work with are, pretty good. They're either AAA if they're a kid or playing college, or they're playing professional hockey. And I think the biggest thing whenever I see them kind of making mistakes is when their confidence is gone. It's like they're rushing plays, they're panicking on the puck. And I think where's that, how is that confidence being lost? Is it being external forces where, you're afraid to make a mistake because your coach is going to bench you or you're going to lose your spot in the lineup, or is it something internal? And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to work with players more on, is just like developing their own internal confidence, because, hey, you know how to do the skill. Like, I've seen you do it 100 times in practice. And the one thing I always say to my players is, I always say to them, like, what's 6 times 6? And they go, 36. And I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, 100%. And I'm like, are you positive? And they're like, yeah, 100% positive. And I go, why do you know that? And they're like, well, I've done it so many times in school. I'm like, it's the same as hockey. You've done it so many thousands of times. It's the same game. You know what to do. It's just like the panic and the hesitation. And I think that's the biggest piece that when I'm working with players now, it's really trying to, okay, yes, from a technical standpoint, we want to teach them new things and build their toolkit. But then when it comes to the game and the thing that makes them, what their career is the games. It's not the practices, it's the games, what they do and show up. And how do we unlock that so when it comes to game time, they can execute on what we're trying to work on. And I think that's the most important thing that we really think about. And I think it's, the confidence, because there's a lot of great skilled players playing in Europe, playing in the American League, but they're not in the NHL. And there's some guys in the NHL just have maybe a little bit more confidence, play a role play a bit better, and that's why they're there. So that's kind of, for me, the biggest piece, like just trying to unlock on that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, do you think with your toolkit as a coach that you've had to add to it over the years, particularly now with this focus on mentality, mental health, the mental strains, in fact, of playing the game? We've spoken to people that have walked away from the game because they couldn't handle the mental side of it. Is that something now that you've sort of added to your toolkit?
Yeah, I think you have to be super mindful of it. And like there's, 22 hours away from the rink that you don't see a player. You might see him for only 2 hours a day, but you don't know what else goes on in their life. That's 100% sure. I think the conversation around like the mental side can go one or two ways. Like you have to bring your very best effort and your work ethic, and like you have to, at the end of the day, you're in a hockey game and you got to win the game. The coach's job is to win the game. And if you're making the same mistake over and over again, accept criticism. It's going to happen. The coach is going to say something to you. And that's where one side is like, okay, like I have to be okay with accepting my faults and failures and making mistakes. But 100%, like I think, I work with a lot of players who are kind of, they're a freshman in college or they're just signed in the American League, and they struggle because like they get 4 minutes or 8 minutes of ice, or they're scratched or whatever it could be. And the biggest thing for me, I say to them is like, okay, but they signed you for a reason. You're there because you did something at the younger levels, and now you're playing safe. Go back to the way you can play. Go back to the reason why they signed you. And like, there's nothing to lose. The only thing you're going to lose is, you're going to go from 4 minutes to 3 minutes. It's not a big deal, but there's everything to gain. So I was looking at it like glass half full, not half empty kind of analogy.
Yeah.
And I think that's
something my wife tells me I struggle with.
Yeah, and I think it's like always be the optimist, not the pessimist. And you don't know where life will take you. And I think it's easier said than done. It's super hard to be in that environment and to have the stresses and the rigors and, like if you're playing professional hockey, like the fan opinion and Instagram and Twitter or whatever else it could be. But I think the biggest thing is, I think the one thing that I've started to do more of in the last, I would say, 2 years is ask players what they read, not like, hey, why did you make that mistake? Or why did you throw the puck there? I just say, hey, what did you see? Or what did you read in that situation? And they would tell me, I panicked. I didn't see anything. Okay, well, our head's down here. We got to work on our posture, like how we talk about it, scanning, all those things, going back for pucks or skating, trying to manipulate defensemen with your head in a certain position. And then I'll say to players as well, like, give me a score out of 10 for your game. And, so I have a lot of players I work with, like, each week on, like, Zoom and just from various levels and teams. And they give their own rating, and they'll say, it was a 6 out of 10. And I haven't even said my opinion. Okay, why was it 6 out of 10? Oh, well, I did this really well, but I didn't execute on these things. Okay, so what would make it a 7? And they'll say, oh, if I did this, it'd be a 7. And I think no player has ever given me a 10 out of 10, and they do it for practice as well. So it's like the idea of you've never, like, I think in hockey, until you finish playing, you don't know when you played your best shift. Like, you might score 3 goals in one shift, but you still have 10 years left of your career. Maybe you have a shift where you score 4 goals, or maybe you have a shift where you score the game-winning goal in a playoff final, or whatever it could be, right? And I think that's the idea, and I think it's just like allowing the people to feel what they feel, and then when I'm being tasked with working with players, like, hey, this is my opinion, this is where I see it, this is what I can help you with, and just working on that. But I think it's just like, what's your own grade? That's the most important thing for me. Like, what do you think? And then I give you my opinion, because sometimes players will say, it was a 5 out of 10. I'll go back, watch it, and then be like, buddy, it was like an 8 out of 10. You played unreal. Like, you're just so focused on, like, getting points. But look at all the stuff you did in the D zone. Look at your stick detail. Look at your gaps. Look at your angles. Like, this is unreal. Like, you didn't get points because your forwards didn't convert. You made some great outlet plays. Sounds great, right? But, like, you had a really good game. If you do this stuff really well, this is going to get you to the next level. The points will come, right? So some people think it's all about point-based metrics, and it doesn't hurt to come away from a season with 30 points if you're a defenseman, right, instead of 10 or 5. But I think that's how I try to work with the players, and their confidence on the puck. It's more important as well.
Yeah. So on that process of self-evaluation and mentality, I want to drop you into a situation.
Yeah.
Which you may have seen happening from the weekend just gone. Streatham Redhawks, Chelmsford Chieftains. Britain Cup semi-final. First leg, Saturday night in Chelmsford. Streatham win by 6-1. They take Chelmsford to school.
Okay.
Sunday night, I don't know if you've seen what happened or anything that's gone on.
News to me, breaking news.
Sunday night down at Streatham, Chelmsford won 6-0 with an overtime winner.
Oh, so one goal leg.
Yeah, so they literally won 5-0 in regulation, forced overtime, and then got the overtime winner from being 6-1 down in the tie.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously, knowing the Streatham squad and working with them in detail in a session or so over here, mentality-wise now, they actually face each other in the league this Sunday.
Yeah.
Mentality-wise, where do you think they're going to be? Is it going to be a fear, or is it going to be we need to prove this wrong? And then how do you think they're going to be evaluating themselves this week?
Well, I know Ben is probably not going to be the happiest guy in the world. I'm sure they're not going to be super happy about themselves. I think that if I was coaching the team or in Ben's shoes, it'd be, all right, boys, what went really well on Saturday? And I'd take the good things from that and then, like, okay, what didn't go well on Sunday? Maybe we were too passive. We thought the game was done before it got done. But we know we can beat this team. If we show up the way we can show up, we'll beat this team by 5 goals. But if we don't show up, they can beat us by 5 goals. And I think that's just kind of the biggest thing, like focusing your team back into that kind of way of like, boys, we're okay. It's a 1-goal game at the end of the day, right? And I think that's, obviously that game means something, I guess, because you move on to the final, right? So it has something more meaning to it on that game. But yeah, no, I'm sure it's also, you don't know what's going to happen. That's why you play hockey. You don't know who's going to, the scores aren't decided before the game. You don't know who's going to show up, who's going to perform. The goalie's not going to show up. Someone can get ejected in the first 10 minutes that, your team could be on a 5-minute penalty straight off the bat. Like, you don't know what's going to happen, and that's why you play hockey, and that's why, regardless of where you are in the league standings or what the score is before, like, it's anyone's game. Any league and any league or team in the whole world, and that's how you kind of have to think of it, and that's always like that, coming back down to, like, the glass is half full. But that being said, okay, what went really well for us? Okay, this went really well. If we execute on this, but maybe Chelmsford came back with a different game plan that neutralized why Streatham are really good. Okay, so if that was then, now we got to think of a different game plan. But it's not going to be, I'm sure the Streatham boys will come out maybe more physical, knowing some of them, and a little bit more pissed off. But yeah, like, you can't, life moves too quickly, and sport moves too quickly to be so focusing on one loss.
Yeah.
If I'm sure, like, Connor McDavid, okay, like, I'm sure you saw the Amazon thing, right, with Willie and all those guys. And
Face off was terrific.
yeah, you see Connor, like, obviously he's frustrated afterwards and he's crying and frustrated and, like, this is a life dream. But there's no way he's going into game one thinking about that last game, right? Like, there's a mental reset that you have to have, and you have to be okay with, like, how many guys from Florida won the Stanley Cup and no longer with the Florida Panthers, right? You just won the cup. The team was unbelievable. Now, I don't know, I think it was 11 guys have not on the team anymore. So it's like life moves it quick, like forget about it, learn from it. Okay, what was really good, what was really bad, okay, and then we move on to the next thing. And then make sure we have our adjustments in place and we have our game plan just like it's a new day. So I think that's how I kind of would reset in that situation. But I didn't know that, so I'm sure Ben is not super happy, but Sunday's a new day, so I'm sure he'll...
You nailed pretty much what he said in his coach's thoughts. He said complacent, they thought it was done, and by the time Chelmsford started, it was still 0-0 like 31 minutes in, and by the time Chelmsford started scoring, their tails were up so high and they couldn't keep it back. It was quite an amazing result. But getting you back on, as I said before, was something that we've been trying to sort of get organised, but it's a little bit easier at the moment because you're normally in New Jersey, but you're currently in Sweden. Tell us what's going on out there, man.
Yeah, so I've been in New York for the last 8 years, pretty much. And America's great. And it's given me my career, basically. But I've been able to work in Sweden for the last, I want to say, 5 years or 4 years of like camps and stuff, especially in the summer and winter time. And I work with a skills coach called Daniel Broberg. He's like one of the biggest skills coaches in the world. So he works with like William Nylander, Jesper Bratt, Elias Pettersson. Like if you know any top Swede, like he's worked with them. Like even like Barkov, the Finnish guy. Like so, I've been super fortunate to be able to team up with him and run some camps in the US. And now I'm getting to a stage where like America's not always the best thing and best place to be all the time, and you miss some like banter and sarcasm, and you start to think, okay, what's my next stage of my life? And I had some really good meetings in Sweden and some really good work opportunities that now I'm trying to pursue, and I'm working over here and working with players and different clubs and everything else. And in Stockholm alone, there's so much hockey going on, like from youth all the way up to the top. You got the Djurgården and the Oikor, Södertälje is not far away. You can go up to the north a little bit more. There's plenty of hockey there. Like I wouldn't necessarily say that I can see my life living in like Skellefteå or Lulu, like how we say it, like way up north, which is like you don't see sunlight at all. I don't think at any point of the year. So yeah, but Sweden's I love Stockholm. It's kind of, I would say it's like the best parts of New York. And there's no trash. Like everyone's super respectful. The subway's super nice. It's easy to get home, which is the most important thing. Like I think the biggest thing that with my schedule, I think in the last, like I was just saying earlier, like I don't really speak to so many people in England, and I want to get home more often than not, and not just go home and be at home for a day. And I want to kind of be more accessible to people and stuff like that in my family. And I think being here is really, really good. It's a lot cheaper than New York. That's and the US dollar is really good against the Swedish krona. And I have an Irish passport, so I can live anywhere in Europe. Yeah. So it's like, if you look in Europe, like I was talking to a friend of mine. He used to coach at Lausanne, and I worked with head coach of Linköping this past summer in France. We did a camp, and maybe you go to Switzerland in a few years. Maybe you stay in Sweden the rest of the time. But I love Stockholm. Super peaceful, super quiet. People are very friendly. I have some good friends here, and I like this is I'm still in New York, so I'm kind of like this weekend I was in New York for the weekend. So I kind of go back and forth. But for me, this is where I see myself now for the next, 5-10 years maybe. And then America can always still be there because I still have the rights and citizenship and stuff like that. So I could still go there and work and stuff. And with my life I do so many camps. So like from April till the end of July, I'm pretty much living my life out of a suitcase anyway. So I've got lots of camps happening. So it's like lots of travel and lots of different things. So yeah, this is a really good home base for me, and I'm literally really getting used to living in Swedish life. And maybe the next time that we speak, I'll know more Swedish than I know today. So yeah.
Proper gear change, though, isn't it? I suppose New York to Stockholm. That's
Yeah. Well, yes, but because I'm working in U.S. hours, I still have like tonight. I have Zooms until 1 a.m. My time, and this morning I was on the ice at 6:30 in the morning with a skills group. So like I'm still living a New York lifestyle a little bit because of my hours, but no, it's just like I've done a ton more walking. I don't have a car here yet, like and just being outdoors more. Like I think it's just been really, really peaceful for me, and it's from a hockey standpoint and a career standpoint, I think it's a really good like they have the same. What's interesting about Sweden is like, and I've always kind of said this in the last couple of years, so I'd probably move this way, but they have the third most highest represented players in the NHL, and now the country has less population than New York City.
Yeah,
and you're like, well, what's going on over here? And the way that they do their like academy gymnasium setup is really, really smart. So when you are in, it would be an equivalent of year 11 in England, you would go to what they call hockey gymnasium. When you go to hockey gymnasium, so you get recruited. They can't recruit you too early. You would move away. So let's say you went to Modo. You go to Modo, and obviously they have SHL, so you can play with the J18, J20, SHL. Now, when you go there, everything's paid for. You don't pay for a single thing. You pay for food, that's basically it, like anything you want to cook for yourself. But usually there's food in the rink. And then you get your equipment, you get your skates, sticks, pants, whatever you need. And then you're playing legit hockey, playing best and best hockey in Sweden. So if you start looking at where the players are coming from and like, you know, the top players, and they played in the Allsvenskan or the SHL, and like now they're in the NHL and they're legitimate superstars. And then you go down the road from that, you go like college. Okay, there's like, I think Sweden is also the third highest represented players in Division I men and women's college. So you start to look at it and go like, the league here is a really legit league, like the SHL and the Allsvenskan. The only thing is different here, it's like there's stability across the board. So when you have a team, like let's take Djurgården for an example, every team has to be owned by 51% by the fans.
right.
So the money side of things, like there's always boards, there's always these decision makers and everything else, but the fans run the club essentially. And you can see that all the way through down to youth level where, you know, on Tuesday night, Johan's dad is running the snack stand. You know, on Wednesday night, now it's, I don't know, what have a Swedish name, Elvin's dad, right? So like they have like this rota, and it's very community based, and all the rinks are community owned. There's no private rinks in Stockholm.
Wow.
So everything's community based, and it keeps the costs incredibly low. It's still an expensive sport to play with equipment and everything else, but it encourages more people to be able to participate in the sport. And I think that's really important. And then like, you know, the other day I was doing a little like talking to some people, 25% of Swedish hockey players come from Stockholm. So it's like, okay, so this area has a lot of players, and obviously Sweden's actually a big country when you start to look at it and start to drive, and you're like, there's how many miles? And also today I found out, I asked someone, they're from Sundsvall, and I said, okay, how far away is that from here? Oh, 40 miles. And I was like, Sundsvall is like more than 40 miles. And I go, it's like a good like 5-hour drive. And he's like, no, 400 kilometers. We call it 40 Swedish miles. What is a Swedish mile? Doesn't make sense. Like, it's called a mile. But yeah, no, it's the hockey here is phenomenal. The coaching is great. The structure's really, really interesting. It's something that I wish that we had in the US in the youth level, but we don't. It's more of a business-centric model over there. And it's like, kids don't change teams. It's really hard to change teams as a kid until you get to that gymnasium kind of level. And it's basically just kind of that idea and that kind of development path. And when you go to watch games, like, I was watching a U14 game the other day, and the coaches aren't shortening the bench. Everyone's playing. And then you start to look at like how the kids are playing, and these two teams are pretty good. But the fourth liner can skate just as well as the first liner. And I think like, okay, that's really interesting. Like, okay, like obviously on this first line, on this guy, maybe he could get drafted to NHL. And if you look at central rankings for this year's draft, you have Eklund and Frundell, who are like projected to go top 10 and are on the same team in Djurgården. Eric Nilsson, he's on Djurgården too. He's going to go like probably second round, like 30 or so. Drafts on that team, he'll probably go in the fourth round. So you have four guys going to get drafted to the NHL from one J20 team.
Yeah.
And that's pretty impressive alone. Like, so, and that's not in considering, the kids who are going to go from Luleå, from Modo, from Frölunda, the kid at BU is going to get drafted this year. So there's a bunch of Swedes who are going to get drafted, but it's four from one team. And it's like, what's happening here is really like, okay, so how is that happening? And I think for me as a coach to kind of come in and embrace that and just see, because I obviously know the American side, I know the British side, which we're not, but I know the American side, and like, okay, this is how America does it. They put kids on a pedestal at an early age. Here, it's like more of a slower burn. Yeah. But why are they getting 2 in the top 10? And I don't think America even has, I think maybe they have 1 top 10 pick projected right now, and I think like, okay, so why is it happening here? So you start to kind of like just be curious about that. And that's kind of why I think this is a really good place for me to be. And yeah, like it's no sunlight right now for the next couple of months, but it's okay.
No, well, I mean, as you said, the hockey gymnasium setup, who funds that then?
The club.
So the clubs fund that individually?
So the club funds that. Obviously, if you're an SHL club, you have more money. So if you're in the Allsvenskan, so let's take like Djurgården, who are in the Allsvenskan league. Now, financially, they're okay, but it's all, the budgets are tight. There's no one's losing. They're trying not to lose money on a year, on a team. So let's say they get promoted this year to SHL. They will get the equivalent of, again, I think like $5 million in TV rights because they go SHL. Now your budget for your playing budget's going to go up and everything else. Like, I think they may be one of the top teams spending wise on budget per players right now for that team, but that team budget is still only like, I would say $300,000 dollars, which is, maybe some guys can make more than that in the AHL, one guy. So it's not a lot of money that's spending on players, but I think like the way they treat you, like, I was on the ice yesterday with a J20 team, and I was on the ice today with SDE, and I've been at Oikor and stuff. But when you go to a J20 or J16 team, these teams all have like equipment managers. They have their own locker rooms. They have 2 or 3 coaches. They have a goaltending coach. So the players are supported. It's not just like one dad or something and, figure it out kind of thing. So, yeah, the team kind of funds it. And then, like, obviously sponsors come into the play as well and everything else. Like, I don't know the full inner workings of it, but it just seems like they make everything super, super efficient and, like, everything's under one kind of spot. And I think that's, like, the biggest thing of why they're so successful.
I mean, looking, we'll say years and years into the future, that, you've had your time in playing in this country, you've been to America, now you're in Sweden. Eventually, England ice hockey needs to look at what you're doing and say, this guy knows how it works here, how it works there. Can we make something out of all of that experience to make it work better here? We know just in the last couple of days, actually, the England ice hockey head of the chair of directors has stepped down. I think he actually lived in Singapore, so was never really going to be around to do anything. But yeah, his name's completely escaped me. Actually, it's been quite a long day. But I mean,
Taggart.
Sorry,
There's still the guy Taggart. Taggart was the guy. Like, yeah, I think he lives in Canada. Taggart, Ken Taggart, or he left a long time ago?
Oh no, it wasn't Ken Taggart. It was Nick something.
Oh, Crossy. Nick
right.
Cross.
I'll try and find the post because it only came out literally, I think it was this morning.
The guy who played for the Flames, I think it was Nick Cross.
Yeah, Nick Cross.
Yeah, he lived in Surbiton, where I lived actually, where I grew up. Yeah.
So he's stepped down as the chair of the board due to work commitments.
Okay.
And Nancy Squires has been elected onto the Ice Hockey Board of Directors. She was recruited last year, apparently, but only been donated today. She's come over from Paddle UK.
Okay.
It's I don't think there's too many mirrors from between the two sports. Actually, I played a bit of paddle in the Canary Islands last week. I don't think it's got too much going on with ice hockey. But
my first game here against one of my friends who's Swedish, and he was pretty good. And I was like, "You do as much?" And he's like, "Yeah, I have 2 private lessons a week." And I was like, "Fuck, this is my first game. I'm getting smashed." So I didn't win a single set. It's a hard game to play.
It is a difficult game. I've played squash, so it's really hard to not smash the ball hard.
Yeah.
It's come down. It was a difficult game to play, but yeah, whether her experience in that should suit her well in England ice hockey. But so getting back to how England are doing it, I mean, can you see any way that they can try and take the good of America, the good of Sweden, and maybe even the rest of Europe and try and make something here? Or, as I think we may have well even discussed last time, should our good young players be saying, let's go and see the world and take advantage of how everyone else does it?
I think it depends, like from a player standpoint, it depends on the situation for yourself. Like I think financially is a massive thing. Like to go to the US, we talked about last time, it's about, I don't know, a year, 30,000 to 40,000 pounds, depending. And that's really, really difficult. I think there was a kid the other day from Manchester, may have just signed in the BCHL. And like Sammy Line, obviously, but Sammy still had to pay to go to prep school in the US and everything else, and that's not cheap. So I think the issue, again, I don't know the full workings. Obviously, I just speak to Mizey and to talk to him. That's it, basically. But I think the biggest thing is like there's just too many pockets of people trying to go their own way and their own agenda and not coming together and saying, hey, this is the system and this is the way we do it and this is how every club has to run. If you want to play in our system, you have to run this way. And I think it does need the Elite League involvement because that's your big money teams. So you need the Elite League on board of like, okay, if I'm an Elite League owner, like if I'm just like in it because like maybe I can make some money of it or I want to win championships, why do I care about the 9-year-old who's going to learn to skate, right? He may never play for the Sheffield Steelers, right? And I think it's just like, where do you go from that position? Whereas like in Sweden, it's set up in a place where it's like every team has a young team, yes. Like I think today on SDE, I had U9, U11, U13 for an hour, so like you have young kids. I had 2017 born on the ice today, and I was like, fuck, 2017, I'm making me feel old, like this could be my kid, like what the hell. So then I go like, I look at that and then they go to gymnasium. So then when they get to 15, okay, and then they get picked up and they go to gymnasium and they do all that stuff. I think you can make that model for sure. I just don't think it's really, really difficult to do. I think if you look at the structure of the teams and the leagues and the organizations, it's also difficult to do as a player if you're only practicing 2 times a week at 10:45 at night. You're not getting super good coaching if you're not playing competitive games. So I think, like while we're on the phone, actually, I'm working with Nottingham youth program in February for a couple of days because I'm going to be over there doing a camp with Connie Yates. You know Connie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to do the skills for his selects program. So I'm super excited by that. And then I'm going to go on the ice, I guess, with Nottingham kids, I guess, in the evenings as well. So I think it's also like it's on the governing bodies to come together and be like, okay, let's figure this out, okay, and then we gotta have rules for our clubs, and it can't be in the interest of the clubs. It has to be like you have to have give and take. You have to sacrifice something for a long-term gain. But I think it's gone too far past that point now where we're going to be able to do that. And I think what the federation should really look to, if you're focusing slowly on the elite British talent, let's just take that as a cycle, like the top players, then we've got to find ways and pathways for them to be exposed to better competition, better games, better practices, and better coaching. So, like, where can we take them? Can we pay for, I don't know, like Italy's women's program, they went to Montreal for training all this summer. So there's a training center in Montreal, and they send the whole, basically, I think they paid for 15 players to go train in Montreal for the whole summer. They pay for flights, apartment, food, all the ice, all the coaching, and they just said, hey, you're going to live in Montreal for 2 months. So, like, is that something that the British Federation could do for the top 15 to 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds? You know, then can the elite league buy into that? Because, okay, if these kids are going to get good training, maybe they can actually play for us. You know, maybe they can be legitimate players for us. So maybe a 19-year-old can play, you know, a third-line center role for the Nottingham Panthers. You know, and then he's not going to cost us ITC card or whatever it is. He's going to cost us only £400 a week.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the way they see it. But I think it's just gone too far along from that it's disjointed. And it's like, I don't really understand the lines anymore of like the old conference system. And now you have England, which is like not really England. Now it's like a showcase. And now it's like kids are mixed up with each other. And it's like, it doesn't really make so much sense to me. Whereas like, I'd rather put the money into like mini camps for like in centralized areas with like elite coaching. So like, let's say, hey, let's get the 15 best goalies from Coventry and down, and every, I don't know, once a month, I don't know, we have this goalie coach who we like. Maybe it's Ewan King, maybe, right? He's a British, yeah, maybe it's Kinger. Kinger's it's free, we pay for it, but you guys are going to get trained by Kinger because we know at your clubs you don't have goalie coaching. But we're going to invest in you because at the end of the day, you're still paying us to trial. You're still paying us to come on the tournaments or whatever. And you're still paying us the membership fee, right? You pay for like EIHA.
Yeah.
So yeah. So like how much does it cost for, I don't know, an hour of ice or 2 hours of ice and Kinger? Probably, I don't know, £500 a month. You're saying we don't have that, we can't do that. I'm just saying goalies, we can't do that 4 times, 5 times a year. You know, like there's not a lot of money when you start looking at the money that's coming in. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the books. I'm just thinking what could be done. But I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, it's the biggest focus that I would have. Trying to align people, trying to be, it's hard to get to the Europe standard quickly, but also expose the players to like, how, like, okay, you can, I was telling this to a parent the other day in England, like, I was like, oh, because he's a 2014, James Chandler, he's a pretty good player, like, probably, like, he plays in his age group and he scores 7 goals a game or whatever. And I was saying to Dad, like, do you reckon it'd be good if, like, you can get some players and we can come to Sweden and we'll do, like, a 2-day mini camp with Daniel Broberg and myself, and then we'll play some games against some players. And I started doing, like, the costing of it. And the flights were, like, £80 round trip. Hotels are only, like, $70. And you don't have to rent a car because it's all in Stockholm. So it would only cost a family maybe at most £450, £500. I was like, would that make sense? And he's like, that's really good. Like, some of these trips are, like, 1,000, 2,000.
Yeah. And
I'm like, okay, so could you do that 3 or 4 times a year? Doesn't that make up the surplus and the competition and the training that you need? Maybe. So that's, maybe we have to look at it that way and do more things that side of things. I know Guildford goes to like France quite a bit now between the Milos, and I know, I want to say England 12s or 13 just went to Slovakia. They went to Trenčín. But that's like the England national team, so that's not really the clubs, you know, or anything else.
Yeah, I think with the products of the draft showcase that have then to do the Quebec Pee Wee as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's certainly ways around it, and in this country, I suppose I'm repping it sort of as we speak with Ozone. We've got that sort of that private entity there where players and clubs can take it upon themselves to contact Mersey and just go down there to do what he's offering. And you've coached there as well yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I've done 4 camps now there, and I have 2 in April and 1 in the summer. But yeah, no, with Maisie, like, well, it's also like, I think if anything you're going to do in life, it's your career, and I think, like I say this, like when people get so hung up on politics, and I'm like, in politics, it's like, okay, Trump's in office now. That's fine, but it's not going to change my life drastically because I have the power to change my own life. Yeah, maybe I have a higher tax bracket. Maybe, yeah, I have these things, but I still have the power. And I think when you think of yourself as an athlete, if you have high aspirations, it's your life. It's your career. You have to go out there and do the extra stuff. You have to go out there and shoot the pucks. You have to go out there, go to the gym, find the coach you want to go to. You have to invest in yourself. So, those players who are going to go and do stuff at Maisie, like it's fantastic. Go do it. Do as much as you can. Like, obviously, money's not a bottomless pit. For some people, maybe they have more. Some people have less. But, take advantage of those things that are available to you. And I think, I was saying to Maisie, like, maybe he should more go around the clubs, and like take the pep to the teams and do like, okay, we have a weekend training model and every team is going to get 3 hours of ice or whatever it could be. So more kids are getting exposed to that type of skill level, skill like development that maybe they don't have. And I think that's just kind of, and then maybe that whets their appetite for more. And then maybe if you have 1,000 people asking for the same thing, it's going to be hard to deny than the one person asking for the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. Like the players and like, okay, you have maybe the people making decisions, okay, but the people making decisions is like just like in politics are the people, they're answering to the people. So if the people are demanding this en masse, then they can't deny it. They have to say like, no, this is what we have to do because it's not because of what I think is right. It's what I think the people are saying. I have to serve the people. And that's why you should be in a position of any governments or anything, like I'm here to serve these people and give them what their wants and needs and direct them and lead them into the way that they want to be led to. So I think that's maybe has to happen more in England, in the UK. Like we have to come united as groups and as people. We're not competing with each other in this conversation. It's more of like we all want the same thing. And if we all work together, we can all get the same thing. We can get more training. We can get more skills. We can get more ice time. We can be a little bit more creative in how we do games and showcases and tournaments. And, we can start forcing the hand the way we want to force it because this is what we all want. If we all want to get better. If every team just wants to win the league, then it's never going to happen. Because every team is like, no, we want competitive hockey. We want to play one goal games. We want to play best on best more. We want to develop more players to play pro. We want to develop more players to go to European leagues or American leagues or whatever it could be. If everyone has the same idea and the end goal, then okay, then you can start forcing it. But if it's just like, I don't know, if it's just like Swindon, they just only care about winning U14 nationals, then it's never going to happen. Because they're like, we don't care, we just want to win the nationals, and then we want to win it next year. And then when they get to 18, we don't care. Now we have the U16, we're going to win nationals. So I think that's just what this kind of happen, is those kind of conversations to kind of bring people together.
It's got to be big picture, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always like, but, it's the same conversation that maybe had 15 years ago. It hasn't changed. Apart from Romford has a new ice rink, which I haven't been to yet.
The Sapphire, it's one of my favourite ones to visit, actually.
I haven't been there yet. I've only had the pleasure of playing in the old rink. Yeah.
Yeah, the Sapphire is great, actually. I do enjoy any time I get down there. Last time I went down there, I was commentating for Romford against Cheems, and they treat me very well down there.
Well, I just saw my friend Norcliffe. He just signed with the Raiders again.
He did, yeah. He's left Streatham and gone back to the Raiders, yeah.
I just texted him and I said, what's happened? Like, the housework is done now? You can go play hockey again? Because he bought his house and he had to do all his renovations. That's why he couldn't play hockey. So I guess now he's finished his kitchen. Now he's free on the weekends. I don't know. Yeah,
that National League does. It's quite a schedule actually in comparison to the third team.
Yeah, it's crazy jump.
Yeah, but to be fair, for the level that I cover, that's made it even better because a lot of players are taking that step down. It's made it a lot more competitive, a lot more exciting. We've got 4 teams at the top of the Britain division really, really fighting it out this year. As we said earlier, we've just had an incredibly exciting semi-final weekend. and now we're all looking forward towards the business end and down towards the playoffs. And if you're in the UK in April and you can get yourself to Sheffield over the weekend of 12th and 13th, I think that's going to be a hell of a weekend.
Yeah, that's at the end of my camp. Maybe I will, because that's at the end of. I'm always on that week. Yes, before that. Yeah.
Yeah, mate. That if you're in the country, mate, that could be a great little weekend to get yourself up there.
Yeah, maybe 20 beers though. I don't know.
Cheems, thank you so much for your time, brother. It's always such a good time to talk to you. I love following what you do on Instagram and on the social media, seeing all the stuff that you're doing with the young players. And anytime you're back in the UK, I'm sure any other team, as Streatham included, will always welcome you on the ice.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, thanks. And all these conversations that we have, I think it all just comes out of a point of, like, you're passionate about growing UK hockey and want to see it develop and everything else. And I think it's just, again, like I said, like trying to unite players, not saying that I have all the answers or you will have all the answers, but I think more people that have these kind of conversations really can make a change and can change it in a positive way. And we see some big changes happen in the next 5 years for sure, hopefully.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. Best of luck for all your work you're doing in Sweden, and we'll catch up.
Thanks.
Well, a massive thanks to Cheems for joining me on the podcast. A sneaky little one that we snuck in there. It's always good to speak to Cheems. The coaching that he does is absolutely out of this world. If you follow him on Instagram or Facebook at Cheema Hockey, you could just see some of the really in-depth skills training that he does. As you said, he's in Sweden now. Before, he was training in the New Jersey Devils rink, doing all sorts of stuff in there. You know, he does name drop a few of these sort of NHL players that he helps and scouts trains with. So it's brilliant for a British guy like that. We were just speaking a little bit off air about his his kind of little bit of disappointment about how the international sides are doing, but he pleads for the time being that he is not the answer. He may well be in the future. As I said there, I was kind of poking the bear a little bit of, should he really be involved at a high level of England ice hockey? But at the moment, he's doing his business in Sweden and he's doing a cracking job. Well, thank you so much for listening. Once again, thanks to Cheems for joining me, taking a little bit of time out of his evening. I know he's going to be sitting in front of his computer for a little while yet. But we'll squeeze this one out on the Friday for you. So this has been their 3-episode week from ZPG. Thank you so much for listening to all of them, and I'll catch you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now save 40% on our new special edition smart bed. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.